In this video, we are going to talk about the movie Beetlejuice. We will also discuss the storyline, provide a clear summary of the plot, and take a closer look at the cast and the characters. We will also cover the film's production detail and its box office performance. Finally, we will share our overall reviews along with some personal reaction. So let's get started. When we begin talking about Beetlejuice, it's important to first slow down and appreciate why this film is even worth a discussion in the first place. This is not just another sequel, it is a result to a very specific cinematic voice, one that has influenced generation of filmmaker and audience alike. At its core, the movie sits in a fascinating blend of genre, comedy, fantasy, and horror, but not the kind of horror that rely on fear or tension. Instead, it lean into something more playful, almost mischievous. There is this spooky fun where the supernatural world feels strange yet oddly inviting. That balance between era visuals and humor is what makes this genre mix so compelling. It's not easy to make audience laugh and feel unsettled at the same time, yet this film embraced that challenge fully. A big reason for this is the director Tim Burton. Whenever we talk about a Tim Burton film, we are not just discussing a story, we are stepping into a style. Burton has always had a unique artistic identity, gothic, quirky, and slightly offbeat. His words are filled with exaggerated character, unusual setting, and a sense of dark whimsy that feel almost like a living cartoon. In Beetlejuice, that signature style returned, reminding audience why Bhutan became such a recognizable name in cinema. Now let's talk about the production style, because this is where the films become even more interesting. Unlike many modern movies that rely heavily on digital effects, Bhutan approach often favor practical effects, handcrafted design and stylized set. This gives the film a tangible, almost theoretical quality. You can feel the texture of the world, the strange architecture, the exaggerated costume, and the surreal makeup. This create an immersive experience that feel more personal and artistic compared to the overly polished CGI heavy production. This choice also affect the sequels to its root. The original film from 1988 had a very distinctive look, and maintaining that visual identity is crucial. By blending old school technique with modern filmmaking tool, the movie bridges past and present. It respects long time fan while still appealing to a newer audience who may be discovering this world for the first time. Another reason this movie deserves discussion is its tone. Many sequels struggle because they either copy the original too closely or try to completely reinvent it. This film walks a careful line. It revisits familiar themes, life, death, and the chaos in between, but through a slightly updated lens. There is a generational aspect now which adds depth without losing the playful spirits that define the franchise. As a reviewer, what stands out most is how the film invites us to enjoy the unusual in a world where many movies aim for realism. Beetlejuice proudly embraces the bizarre. It does not try to explain everything logical, and that's exactly the point. It encourages viewer to let go, to laugh at the burst, and to appreciate creativity in its purest form. So, before diving deeper into the story or character, it's worth pursuing here. This film is not just about what happened on screen, it's about how it's presenting. The genre blend, the unmistakable direction of Tim Burton, and the carefully crafted production style all come together to create something that feels both nostalgic and refreshingly different. When looking at the production budget of the film, the most useful approach is to treat it as a controlled mid-scale investment rather than a traditional high-risk blockbuster. The estimated cost of the film is around $100 million, which places it in a modern range by modern Hollywood standard. This figure is particularly interesting because earlier plans suggested a significantly higher budget, but it was deliberately reducing during development. That reduction signals a strategic decision by the studio to limit financial exposure while still maintaining enough resource to support the film's visuals and creative ambition. A major portion of the budget was allocated toward maintaining the distinctive artistic identity associated with director Tim Burton. His filmmaking style relied heavily on stylized production design, practical effect, and carefully crafted environment rather than purely digital spectacle. This means that instead of spending exclusively on computer generated imagery, the film invests in physical sets, costume, makeup, and detail art direction. While these elements are not necessarily cheap, they often provide better cost control compared to the large scale CGI workflow that can expand unpredictably during post production. Another key area of resource allocation involves the cast and the overall tunnel participation. Films of this scale typically include well-known actors whose salaries can significantly impact the total budget. However, in this case, there were indications of financial adjustments such as lower upfront payments combined with performance-based incentive. This kind of arrangement reduces immediate production costs while allowing contributors to benefit if the film performs well commercially. It reflects a balanced financial model that spreads risk across both the studio and the creative team. Production logistics also play an important role in budget efficiency. Modern filmmaking frequently uses tax incentive, location benefits, and scheduling efficiencies to control expenses by carefully choosing filming location and optimizing production timeline. The filmmaker can reduce overhead costs without compromising the overall quality of the final product. These behind the scene decisions are often less visible to audience but are critical in keeping the total spending within a targeted range. When comparing this budget to the similar film, the positioning becomes clear. The original Beetlejuice was made on a much smaller budget, reflecting the economic condition and production scale of its time. In contrast, many contemporary fantasy or franchise films now exceed 150 to $200 million, especially those driven by heavy visual effect and global blockbuster expectation. In that context, Beetlejuice occupies a middle ground. It is more expensive than older practical effect driven films, but notably more restrained than modern CGI heavy production. This middle positioning suggests a deliberate strategy. The film relies on brand recognition, nostalgia, and a royal fan base rather than attempting to compete directly with large scale action franchise. By keeping the budget around $100 million, the studio reduced the break-even threshold, making it easier for the film to achieve profitability. It is particularly important for a sequel arriving decades after the original, where audience demand, while strong, may not be as predictable as that of ongoing franchise entry. Overall, the production budget reflects a careful balance between creative ambition and financial discipline. The estimated cost allocation of resources toward practical artistry and the comparison with both past and present film all point to a controlled investment approach. Instead of aiming for maximum scale, the film focuses on maintaining its unique identity while operating with a manageable financial framework. When discussing the genre and the overall mood of the Beetlejuice, it becomes clear that the film operates within a very distinctive blend of style that is not easily confined to a single category. At its core, it's combined fantasy, comedy, and horror, but the way these elements interact is what truly defines the experience. Rather than leaning heavily into fear or suspense, the film embraces a playful, eccentric interpretation of the supernatural. The atmosphere is one of the more defining aspects. From the beginning, there is a sense of entering a world that feels slightly off, where reality is distorted just enough to create curiosity instead of discomfort. This is largely influenced by the creative vision of the Tim Burton, whose signature gothic style shaped the entire environment. The settings are often exaggerated, filled with unusual architecture, bold contrast, and surreal detail that make the world feel both hairy and whimsical at the same time. Instead of darkness being threatening, it becomes expressive and artistic. The mood consistently balances between light-hearted and strange. The horror elements are present, but they are softened by humor and absurdity. Ghosts, the afterlife, and supernatural elements are not portrayed as terrifying focus, but as chaotic, sometimes ridiculous part of existence. These create a tone where audience are more likely to laugh at the busier situation rather than feel scared by them. It's a kind of safe horror where the tension is replaced by curiosity and amusement. Pacing play a very important role in maintaining the mood. The film does not rush aggressively from one major event to another. Instead, it allows scenes to unfold with a sense of rhythm that matches creaky tone. Moment of dialogue, visual exploration, and character interaction are given space to breathe. At the same time, bursts of chaotic energy, often driven by unpredictable nature of the central ghost character, interrupt this calm, create a dynamic flow. This contrast between slow atmospheric sense and sudden comedy chaos between the audience engage without overwhelming them. Tone is perhaps the most carefully balanced element. Many films struggle when combining comedy and horror because one can easily undetermine the other. In this case, the tone lean more toward comedy, but it will never fully abandon its darker aesthetic. This humor is often rooted in the strange and the unexpected rather than the traditional jokes. Visual gangs, exaggerated performances, and bizarre scenarios contribute to a tone that feels unconventional yet cohesive. The film invites viewer to accept its odd logic and enjoy the ride rather than question its realism. Stylistically, the films make deliberate choices that reinforce its genre identity. Practical effects, stylized makeup, and detailed set design give the visuals a tangible quality. This approach enhances the surreal atmosphere because everything feels handcrafted and intentional. Instead of relying solely on digital effects, the film used physical element to create a world that feels alive in its own peculiar way. This stylistic design also connected to the original Beetlejuice, maintaining continuity while still feeling updated. Another important aspect of the mood is its sense of unpredictability. The film thrives on the unexpected, with scenes often shifting direction in unusual way. This unpredictability adds to the comedic effect but also keep the audience slightly off balance, which is essential for maintaining engagement in a story that deal with supernatural theme. Overall, the genre and the mood of the film are defined by contrast and balance. It is era but not frightening, humorous but not purely comedic, and chaotic yet carefully structured. Through its atmosphere, pacing, tone, and stylistic choices, the film creates a unique viewing experience that stands apart from more conventional entries in the fantasy or horror genre. When approaching a film like Beetlejuice, audience expectation being forming long before the opening scene. This is not just another new release; it carries the weight of legacy, nostalgia, and a very specific creative identity shaped by Tim Burton. Because of that, viewers come into the experience with layered expectation that vary depending on their background, age, and familiarity with the original Beetlejuice. From a demographic perspective, the audience can broadly be divided into two groups. The first include long-time fans who grew up watching the original film. For them, expectations are deeply tied to nostalgia. They are not just looking for entertainment, they want to reconnect with a world that left a lasting impression. This group expect the school to preserve the quirky tone, the strange humor, and the distinctive visual style that made the original memorable. At the same time, they may carry a degree of skepticism after such a long gap between the films. There is always a concern about whether the sequel can capture the same logic. They may carry a degree of skepticism after such a long gap between films. There is always a concern about whether the sequel can capture the same magic or if it will feel like a modern reinterpretation that loses its original charm. The second major group consists of younger viewer or new audience who may have little or no attachment to the original film. Their expectation can shape more by contemporary cinema trend and the original appeal of fantasy comedy film. For them, the film need to stand on its own. They are likely expecting visually engaging scenes, fast-paced storytelling, and characters that feel relevant and relatable. While they may appreciate the film's unique style, they are less concerned with how closely it aligned with its predecessors and more focused on how entertaining it is as a standalone experience. Another layer of expectations come from the anticipated theme based on the nature of the original story and the involvement of Tim Burton. Audience expect a continuation of ideas related to life, death, and the strange space in between. However, there is also an expectation that these themes will evolve. Modern viewers often look for deeper emotional connection, particularly involving families, dynamic, or generational relationship. The inclusion of younger generation within the story suggests that the film may explore these ideas in a more contemporary way, blending humor with moment of emotional resonance. Genre fans also play a significant role in shaping expectation. Those who enjoy fantasy and supernatural storytelling expect a creative and imaginative world. They look forward to unusual setting, inventive visuals, and a sense of unpredictability. At the same time, fans of comedy anticipate a specific kind of humor, one that is offbeat, slightly dark, and driven by absurd situation rather than conventional joke. The challenge for this film is to meet both of these expectations without allowing one genre to overpower the other. For viewers who are particularly drawn to the horror respect expectations are more nuanced. They are unlikely to expect traditional scare or intense suspense. Instead, they anticipate a soft horror approach where error elements are presented in a playful and stylized manner. This creates an expectation of atmosphere rather than fear, with the supernatural is intriguing rather than threatening. There is also an expectation tied directly to the director's signature style. Tim Burton's name alone set a certain standalone audience expect visually distinctive storytelling with a strong emphasis on design, mood, and character eccentricity. If the film leans too far into conventional filmmaking, it risks disappointment those who are especially drawn to Burton's unique approach. On the other hand, if it fully embraces his style, it may feel refreshing in a landscape dominated by more standardized visual effects. Another important factor is pacing and storytelling structure. Modern audiences are accustomed to faster narrative, but a film like this carries an expectation of a more deliberate rhythm. Viewers anticipate a balance between story progression and visual exploration. Whether the word itself is given time to unfold, this creates a subtitle tension between traditional storytelling and modern viewing habits. Ultimately, audience expectations for the film are shaped by a combination of nostalgia, genre preferences, evolving cinematic standards. Some viewers are looking for a faithful continuation, others for a fresh and engaging story, and many for a blend of both. The film entered the conservation with a unique advantage. It already has a strong identity, but that also means expectations are more specific and in some cases harder to satisfy. When examining the target audience for the film, it becomes clear that the film is designed to appeal to a broad yet carefully defined group of viewers rather than focusing on a single demographic. It blends the element that attract multiple age groups, interest, and genre preferences, all while staying rooted in the distinctive style associated with the time. Tim Burton. Starting with the age group, the film is primarily aimed at teenager and adult, roughly ranging from age 13 and up. While it is not an intense or frightening horror film, it still contains supernatural theme, dark humor, and slightly era visuals that may not be suitable for very young children. Teenagers are likely to enjoy the film's quirky tone, imaginative world, and unconventional character, while adults, especially those familiar with the original Beetlejuice, will appreciate the nostalgic element and the deeper thematic undertone. The dual appeal allow the movie to function as both a family adjacent experience and a more mature, stylized comedy for older viewers. In terms of interest, the film is clearly tailored for audience who enjoy creativity and originality in storytelling. Viewers who are drawn to unusual narrative, visually expressive words, and characters that break away from traditional norms will find the films particularly engaging. It is not designed for those seeking realism or grounded drama. Instead, it appeals to people who appreciate fantasy setting where logic is flexible and imaginative takes priority. Fans of artistic filmmaking, stylized visual and thematic presentation are especially like to connect with the movie's approach. Another key interest group include viewers who enjoy nostalgia-driven content because the film is a sequel released decade after the original. It naturally attracts those who have a long-standing connection to the story and its character. These viewers are often interested in revisiting familiar worlds and seeing how they have evolved over time. At the same time, the film is structured in a way that does not completely exclude newcomers, making it accessible to audiences who are experiencing this universe for the first time. Looking at genre preferences, the movie is best suited for fans of fantasy comedy with light horror element. It does not fit neatly into traditional horror as it avoids intense scare and intense instead focuses on atmosphere and humor. Viewers who enjoy supernatural stories presenting in a playful and imaginative way are the ideal audience. The film humor is often offbeat and slightly dark, which make it may resonate more with audience who appreciate unconventional comedy rather than straightforward joke. Additionally, fans of director-driven cinema are an important part of the target audience. Tim Burton has an recognizable style that attracts viewers who specifically seek out his work. These audiences expect a certain visual identity, gothic aesthetic, exaggerated design, and a blend of strange and whimsical element. For them, the appeal of the film lies as much in his presentation as in its story. The film also targets viewers who enjoy character-driven experience rather than purely action-focused narrative. While these are the moment of chaos and the energy, the story places emphasis on relationship, particularly with a family context. This makes it appealing to audience who value emotional connection and character interaction alongside visual spectacle. At the same time, it's important to recognize who the film may be not be intended for viewers who prefer fast-paced action and stylized or unconventional humor require a certain openness to its unique approach. Overall, the target audience for the film can be described as teen and adult viewers who enjoy fantasy comedy, appreciate artistic and gothic visual, and are open to unusual storytelling style. It bridges the gap between nostalgic fan of the original and a newer generation of viewers, creating a shared experience that is both familiar and fresh. By combining these elements, the film positions itself as a distinctive offering that stands apart from more conventional mainstream release. The emotional experience offered by the Beetlejuice is quite unique because it does not follow the traditional emotional path of most films. Instead of focusing on deep sadness, intense fear, or high stake drama, it creates a layered emotional journey that blends amusement, curiosity, mild unease, and occasional warmth. The result is an experience that feels light on the surface but still carries subtitle emotional depth underneath. Starting with mood, the film establishes an atmosphere that is both playful and era. At the same time, there is a constant sense of strain, but it is not meant to disturb the viewer in a serious way. Instead, it invites the audience to feel comfortable within the unusual. The presence of ghosts, the afterlife, and the bizarre situation could easily create a dark or frightening tone, but under the direction of Tim Burton, these elements are softened with humor and visual charm. The mood leans toward whimsical rather than threatening, encouraging viewer to smile at the absurdity rather than recoil from it. This balance creates a kind of emotional safety even when the film introduces darker imaginary on themes that don't reassure the audience that they are in a controlled imaginative space. This allows viewers to engage with ideas like death and supernatural without feeling overwhelmed. The emotional experience becomes more about fascination than fear and more about enjoyment than tension. Looking at the theme, the film explores ideas related to family identity and the connection between different world. One of the key emotional threads comes from the generational relationship, particularly the interaction between older and younger characters. This introduced moment of relatability and warmth that ground the otherwise real story. While the film does not dive deeply into heavy emotional drama, it still provides enough substances for viewers to feel connected to the character and their journey. Another important theme is acceptance both of oneself and of the strange, uncontrollable aspect of life. The chaotic nature of the supernatural world reflects the unpredictability of real life, and the character must learn to navigate the chaos rather than resist it completely. This idea subtly shaped the emotional impact, encouraging viewers to embrace imperfection and predictability in a light-hearted way. The intended impact of the film is not to leave the audience emotionally exhausted or deeply moved in a dramatic sense. Instead, it aimed to create a lasting impression through its originality and tone. Viewers are likely to leave the film feeling entertained, slightly amused, and perhaps a little reflective. The emotional takeaway is gentle rather than intense. It lingers as a sense of enjoyment and appreciation for creativity. Humor plays a central role in shaping this impact. The comedy is not always loud or obvious. It often comes from the strange behavior of character, unexpected situation, and visual exaggeration. This type of humor creates a steady emotional rhythm, keeping the audience engaged and relaxed throughout the film. Even when the story becomes chaotic, the humor acts as a stabilizing force that maintains the overall mood. There is also a subtitle element of nostalgia and emotional experience, especially for viewers familiar with the original Beetlejuice. This adds another layer of feeling where the enjoyment is not only about the current story but also about reconnected with the familiar world. For new viewer, this nostalgia may not be as strong, but the film still offers a sense of discovery that can be equally engaging. Importantly, the film avoids extreme. It does not aim to scar intensely, nor does it push too far into emotional drama. Instead, it stays with a balanced emotional range that feels accessible to a wide audience. This makes it easier for viewers to enjoy the film without needing to prepare for heavy or overwhelming content. Overall, the emotional experience of the films can be described as lightly era, consistently playful, and gently meaningful. Through its mood, themes, and intended impact, it offers an experience that is more about enjoyment, imagination, that emotional intensity. It invites viewer to step into a strange world, laugh at its chaos, and leave you with a sense of quiet satisfaction rather than dramatic emotional release. At the heart of the film lies a story concept that is less about linear event and more about the interaction between words, both literal and symbolic. The film operates with a space where the boundary between life and death is not fixed but fluid, almost negotiable. This creates a narrative foundation that allows the story to explore deeper ideas about identity, continuity, and unpredictable nature of existence. From a thematic perspective, one of the central ideas is the coexistence of opposite. Life and death are not presenting as a separate or opposing force but are interconnected states that overlap and influence one another. The living are not entirely grounded in reality, and the death are not entirely detached from it. This blend suggests that existence itself is not defined by clear boundaries but by transition and transformation. In this sense, the film uses its supernatural framework to reflect on the uncertainty and complexity of real life. Another key theme is the persistence of the past. The story suggests that the past is never truly gone, it lingers, resurfaces, and continues to shape the present. This is not only representing through returning character or familiar setting but also through emotional and psychological connection. The past becomes a kind of presence, almost like a ghost that influenced decisions, relationship, and identity. By framing the past in this way, the film subtly comment on how individuals carry their history with them, whether they acknowledge it or not. The idea of identity is also central to the film's core message. Characters are often caged between who they were or who they are and who they are expected to be. This tension is amplified by the surreal environment where rules are flexible and appearance can be depreciated. Identity becomes something unstable, shaped by both internal choices and external forces. The presence of chaotic element within the story reflects the idea that identity is not something fixed or easily defined, but something that evolves through experience and interaction. Within this framework, the concept of chaos plays a significant role. Chaos is not simply portrayed as disorder or disruption, it is presenting as creative and transformative form. The unpredictable nature of the supernatural world introduces instability, but it also creates opportunities for change. This suggests a broader message about embracing uncertainty rather than resisting it. The film implies that attempt to control everything, whether in life or in the face of the unknown, are ultimately futile. Instead, growth comes from adapting to unpredictability and finding meaning within it. Family and generational connection from another important layer of the story concept. The narrative explores how relationships extend across time, linking different generations through shared experience and unresolved tension. These connections are not always harmonious, they are complex, sometimes strained, and shaped by both understanding and misunderstanding. However, they remain a constant presence, grounding the otherwise surreal element of the story. Through this, the film emphasizes that human connection is one of the few stable elements in an unstable world. The message of acceptance runs quietly throughout the film. Acceptance or not does not mean possessive resignation, but rather an active acknowledgement of reality in all its complexity. Characters are encouraged in subtitle way to accept the strange, the uncomfortable, and the uncontrollable aspect of their life. This includes expecting change, accepting the past, and even expecting the unknown. By doing so, they are able to navigate their world more effectively, even if they can't fully understand it. Stylistically, these themes are reinforced by the influence of Tim Burton, whose approach often highlights the beauty in the unusual and the meaningfulness of what might initially seem abrupt. The exaggerated visuals and unconventional tones are not just aesthetic choices, they serve to emphasize the film's core idea that reality itself can be strange and unpredictable. By presenting a world that defies normal logic, the film encourages viewers to question their own assumption about order, normality, and control. In abstract terms, the story can be understood as an exploration of threshold between life and death, past and present, order and chaos, self and other. These thresholds are not barriers but spaces of interaction where transformation becomes possible. The character exists within these spaces, navigating them in ways that reflect broader human experience. Ultimately, the core idea of the film is not about revolving these tensions but about recognizing and living with them. It suggests that meaning is not found in clear answer or stable condition, but in the ability to engage with uncertainty, to adapt to a change, and to find connection in unexpected places. Through its theme, message, and story concept, the film presents a view of existence that is fluid, layered, and deeply interconnected, offering a perspective that is both imaginative and quietly reflective. The central conflict within film is not built around a single external problem or a straightforward opposition between good and evil. Instead, it unfolds as a layered tension between control and chaos, identity and transformation, and acceptance versus resistance. This conflict operates on both an internal or external level, creating a dynamic where characters are not simply reacting to events but are constantly negotiating their place within an unstable and unpredictable reality. At its core, one of the most significant moral dilemmas revolve around the desire to control what can't be controlled. The world presenting in the film is inherently unstable, shaped by the forces that do not follow conventional logic. Characters are faced with the challenge of navigating this uncertainty while still attempting to maintain order in their lives. This creates a tension between the need for structure and the inevitability of disruption. The dilemma is not about choosing right or wrong in a traditional sense, but about deciding how control one should attempt to assert. over circumstances that resisted. Closely tied to this is the question of acceptance versus denial. The characters are confronting with reality that challenges their understanding of the world and themselves. Accepting these realities require a willingness to let go of familiar expectation and embrace something unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Denial, on the other hand, offers temporary stability but ultimately deepens the conflict. This tension creates an ongoing internal struggle where the character must choose whether to confront the truth of their situation or retreat into a more comfortable but less authentic perspective. Another important aspect of the central conflict is the struggle with identity in a world where appearance can shift and boundaries are blurred. Maintaining a clear sense of itself becomes increasingly difficult. Characters are often caged between different versions of themselves. And now we talk about the conflict here is deeply personal, focusing on the challenge of self definition in an environment that constantly challenges stability. The influence of chaos, often embodied through unpredictable forces within the narrative, intensifies these challenges. Under the creative direction of Tim Burton, chaos is not only simply destructive, it is disruptive in a way that forces change. This introduces another layer of tension whether chaos should be resisted as a threat or embraced as an opportunity. Character must grapple with the consequence of both approaches. Resisting chaos may preserve a sense of order, but it can also limit growth and understanding. Embracing it, however, requires a level of vulnerability and openness that not all characters are prepared to accept. There is also significant interpersonal dimension to the conflict, particularly in the context of relationship. The film explores how individuals interact with one another when forced with uncertainty and change. Difference in perspective, generational viewpoint, and emotional responses create friction between characters. These tensions are not necessarily rooted in hostility but in misunderstanding and differing priority. The challenges lies in finding a way to connect and communicate despite these differences, highlighting the complexity of human relationship. Even within a fantastical setting, the presence of the past add another layer to the conflict. The past is not something that can be easily set aside. It continues to influence the present, shaping decision and emotion. Character must confront unresolved issue and lingering attachment which complicate their ability to move forward. This creates a tension between holding on and letting go. The moral question here is not simply whether to remember or forget, but how to integrate the past into a present in a way that allows for growth rather than stagnation. Additionally, the film introduces a broader philosophical tension between order and disorder. The world itself seems to operate according to shifting rules, challenging the idea that reality is stable or unpredictable. Characters are forced to question their assumption about how things should work, leading to a deeper exploration of uncertainty. This tension reflects a universal human experience, the desire for clarity in a world that often resists. The central conflict, therefore, is not resolved through a single decisive action or victory. Instead, it evolves as characters navigate these overlapping challenges and dilemmas. The resolution, if it can be called that, comes from a shift in the perspective rather than a complete elimination of tension. Characters learn to live with uncertainty, to adopt rather than control, and to find meaning with the complexity of their circumstances. In a sense, the conflict in the film is about negotiating instability emotionally, psychology, and existentially. It is a conflict that reflects real human struggle even within a highly stylized and fantastical world. By focusing on moral dilemmas, internal challenges, and ongoing tension rather than specific events, the film presents a conflict that is both abstract and deeply relatable, inviting viewers to reflect on how they themselves respond to uncertainty, change, and the limit of control. The thematic landscape of the film is richly and intentionally unconventional than presenting its ideas in a direct or dictative way. The film uses its surreal tone and stylized world to explore deeper questions about life, identity, and human connection. These themes unfold through a combination of ethical dilemmas, emotional arc, and subtitle cultural reflection are shaped by the distinctive creative vision of the Tim Burton. One of the most prominent themes evolve around the ethics of control versus acceptance. Characters are placed in situations where they must decide whether to impose order on chaotic circumstances or learn to live with uncertainty. This raises an important ethical question: is it right to try to control forces that are inherently unpredictable, or is it more honest and perhaps more human to accept them? The film does not offer two clear answers. Instead, it presents both approaches as flawed in their own ways. Control can lead to rigidity and denial, while acceptance can feel like surrender. The tension between these choices become a central moral thread, encourages viewers to reflect on how they handle uncertainty in their own lives. Another key ethical consideration involves the treatment of the unknown and the other. The film's supernatural element act as a metaphor by anything that exists outside the boundaries of normal understanding. This raises question about fear, curiosity, and tolerance. Should the unfamiliar be rejected simply because it is different, or should it be approached with openness and willingness to understand? Through its narrative, the film leans toward the idea that embracing between difference leads to growth, while rejection often leads to conflict and isolation. The emotional arc within the film are closely tied to themes of identity and generational connection. Character move through a process of self-discovery, often confronting the gap between who they think and they are and who they actually are. This journey is not straightforward. It involves moment of confusion, resistance, and gradual acceptance. The emotional progression is subtitle but meaningful, emphasizing personal growth rather than dramatic transformation. A particularly important emotional theme is the relationship between generations. The film explores how different age groups perceive the world in a distinctive way, shaped by their experience and culture context. This create both conflict and opportunity. Older character may struggle to adopt a new perspective, while younger character may feel disconnected from tradition and expectation. The emotional arc lies in finding common ground, recognizing that despite these differences, there is a shared need for understanding and connection. The theme of memory and the persistence of the past also plays significant role. The past is not treated as something that can be neatly separated from the present. Instead, it is portrayed as an active influence shaping identity and decision making. This raises question about how individuals should engage with their history. Is it something to be preserved, something to overcome, or something to reinterpret? The film suggests that the past can't be erased, but it can be integrated in a way that allow for growth and change. Culturally, the film touches on the idea of non conformity and individuality in a world that often values normality and predictability. The character exists in a space that celebrates differences. This uniqueness is not presenting as a flaw but as a defining strength. This theme resonates with broader culture conservation about identity, self-expression, and the presence to fit into societal expectation. By embracing the unusual, the film subtly challenges the notion that there is a single correct way to exist. Another culture layer involves the portrayal of life and death as interconnected experience rather than opposing state. This perspective moves away from traditional narrative that treat death as an endpoint or something to be feared. Instead, it is depicted as part of a larger continuum. This approach encourages a more reflective and less fearful attitude toward morality, presenting it as something that can be understood and even in a sense normalized within the story context. The film also explored the theme of chaos as a creative force rather than viewing disorder as purely negativity, shown as something that can disrupt stagnation and open the door to new possibilities. This idea challenges conventional thinking, where stability is often seen as the ideal state. By presenting chaos as both disruptive and transformative, the film invites viewers to reconsider their relationship with uncertainty and change. Finally, there is an underlying theme of connection in an unpredictable world. Despite the strangeness and instability of the environment, relationship remains central. Characters seek understanding, support, and belonging even when the world around them feels inconsistent. This emphasis on connection reinforces the idea that human relationships provide meaning and stability even when external circumstances are beyond control. The theme explored in the film are both abstract and relatable. Through its ethical question, emotional arc, and cultural topic, the film examines how individuals navigate uncertainty, define themselves, and connect with others. It does so in a way that is imaginative and stylized, yet grounded in universal human experience, making it thematic exploration both engaging and thought provoking. The emotional connection created by the film does not rely on intense dramas or deeply tragic moments. Instead, it builds in impact gradually through mood, thematic resonance, and the overall viewer experience. The film invites audience into a world that feels unusual and unpredictable yet emotionally recognizable. This balance between strangeness and familiarity is what allowed viewer to connect with it on a deeper level. Starting with mood, the film establishes a tone that is both playful and slightly error. This combination is important because it creates emotional accessibility. Viewers are not overwhelmed by fear or tension. Instead, they are encouraged to feel curious and engaged. The atmosphere is shaped roughly by the creative style of Tim Burton, blends gothic visuals with humor and imagination. This makes the experience feel safe enough to explore deeper ideas while still being entertaining. The mood acts as an emotional bridge, allowing the audience to step into a surreal world without feeling disconnected from it. This carefully balanced tone also helps maintain a consistent emotional rhythm. Moments of chaos or strangeness are often softened by humor, preventing the film from becoming too dark or intense. At the same time, the underlying eeriness ensures that the story never feels completely light or trivial. This duality keeps viewers emotionally engaged as they are constantly shifting between amusement and curiosity. The result is a steady, immersive experience rather than a series of extreme emotional highs and lows. The theme of the film play a central role in deepening this connection. Ideas such as identity, family relationship, and acceptance are presented in a way that are easy to relate to, even with a fantastical setting. Viewers may not share the character's supernatural experience, but they can understand the emotional challenges behind them. The struggle to define oneself, to connect with others across generational differences, and to accept aspect of life that feels uncertain are all universal experience. One of the most effective aspect of the film's emotional connection is its exploration of generational relationship. These dynamics create a sense of familiarity for viewers as they reflect real life interaction between parents, children, and extended family members. Difference in perspective, communication gap, and the evolving expectation all contribute to the emotional tension that feels genuine. Even when presenting within a surreal context, these relationships anchor the story in reality, making it easier for the audience to relate. Another important theme is the idea of embracing the unusual. The film encourages viewers to accept things that do not fit neatly into expectation. This message resonates on a personal level as many people experience moments where they feel out of place or uncertain. By presenting these feelings in a creative and often humorous way, the film normalizes them. It suggests that being different or facing unpredictability is not something to fear, but something to understand and even appreciate. From a reviewer's experience perspective, the films create emotional engagement through immersion rather than intensity. The stylized visual, distinctive character, and imaginative world building draw viewers in, making them feel like participants rather than passive observers. This immersive quality enhances the emotional connection because it allows audience to experience the story mode and themes more directly. The pacing also reflects to this experience by allowing things to unfold at a measured pace. The films give viewers time to absorb its atmosphere and connect with its characters. It does not rush through emotional moments but instead lets them develop naturally within the flow of the story. This approach creates a more reflective viewing experience where emotion build gradually rather than being forced. Humor plays a subtitle but important role in strengthening the emotional connection. It makes the character more approachable and the story more engaging. Laughter creates a sense of comfort which in turn make it easier for viewer to engage with the film's deeper theme. The humor is often rooted in the unexpected, reinforcing the idea that unpredictability can be both challenging and enjoyable. There is also a quiet sense of nostalgia that may enhance the emotional experience for some viewers, particularly those familiar with the original Beetlejuice. This nostalgia adds an additional layer of connection as it ties the present story to past experience. However, even for new viewers, the film's emotional core remains accessible because it focuses on universal themes rather than relying solely on prior knowledge. Ultimately, the emotional connection of the films comes from its ability to make unusual feel meaningful. Through its smooth theme and the overall viewer experience, it creates a space where audience can explore complex ideas in a light, engaging way. It does not aim to overwhelm the emotion, but rather to leave a lasting impression through its balance of imagination and relatability. This subtitle approach allows the viewers to connect with the story in a way that feels natural, reflective, and quietly impactful. In the Beetlejuice, the character dynamics become much clearer when we focus on specific individual rather than abstract role. Each main character represents a different response to chaos, identity, and the strange overlap between the world. And together they shape the film's emotional and the narrative core. Starting with the Beetlejuice, he fit the classic chaotic trick setter archetype. His personality is unpredictable, mischievous, and the intentionally disruptive. He does not follow rules, and more importantly, he does not respect boundaries, whether emotional, physical, and supernatural. What makes him interesting from a viewer's perspective is that he is not traditional villain. Instead, he represents chaos itself. His action create problem, but they also force other character to confront truth they might otherwise avoid. His personality trait, impulsiveness, threatility, and the strange kind of confidence make him both entertaining and unsettling. He is a character who thrives on imbalance, and his presence ensure that the story never feels stable. Moving to Lydia, details her role evolve into something more grounding and emotionally complex. She represents the reluctant bridge between the world's archetype. Lydia is no longer just an observer of the strange. She is someone who carries the weight of past experience and must navigate their impact on the present. Her personality is defined by the introspection, sensitivity, and a curious approach to the supernatural. Unlike Beetlejuice, she seeks understanding and control. This contrast creates a compelling dynamic as Lydia's desire for stability is constantly challenged by force she can't fully manage. Her emotional depth provides the story with a sense of realism even within its surreal setting. Then there is Astrid and deetz, who can be seen as a curious newcomer or next generational archetype. She represents a fresh perspective, someone encountering the strange world without the same emotional history as Lydia. Her personality trait include curiosity, independence, and the willingness to question whether she does not understand. This makes her an important character for audience connection, especially for younger viewers. As Starred role is not just to experience the supernatural but to reinterpret it through a modern lens. She stands between escapism and acceptance, gradually shaping her own understanding of the characters around her. The interaction between the three characters highlight a layered dynamic. Beetlejuice pushes boundaries. Lydia tries to manage them as and asserted explore them. This triangular relationship creates both narrative tension and thematic depth. Each character reflects a different attitude toward uncertainty, chaos, control, and curiosity. From a stylistic standpoint, the influence of Tim Burton is evident in how these characters are constructed. They are slightly exaggerated, visually distinctive, and emotionally expressive in unconventional way. Their personalities are not subtitle in the traditional sense, but they're consistent with the film's tone. Burton approach allow the character to feel larger than life while still maintaining a relatable emotional core. Another important aspect of the character analysis is how they embody different responses to identity. Beetlejuice is unapologetically himself, embracing hate's chaotic nature without question. Lydia, on the other hand, reflects a more conflicted sense of self, shaped by past experience and present responsibilities. Astrid represent the process of forming identity, navigating between inherited belief and personal discovery. Together, they create a spectrum of self awareness that add depth to the story. It is also worth noting that none of these characters exist in isolation. Their personalities are defined as much of their interaction as by their individual trait. The tension between order and disorder, past and present experience, and curiosity all play out through their relationship. This interconnectedness make the character feel more dynamic and prevent them from becoming static representation of their archetype. In the characters in the films are carefully designed to reflect the film's central idea while still functioning as engaging individuals. Beetlejuice embodies chaos and unpredictability. Lydia Dance represent emotional depth and struggle for control, and Assads bring curiosity and a fresh perspective through their archetype and personality trait. The films create a character-driven experience that is both entertaining and thematically meaningful. The acting in Beetlejuice is one of the film's most defining strengths, not because it aimed for realism in the traditional sense, but because it fully embraced a stylized, expressive approach that matched the film's unusual tone. The performances feel intentionally heightened yet emotionally grounded enough to keep the audience connected. This balance is difficult to achieve, but under the direction of Tim Burton, the cast lean into the eccentricity while maintaining a sense of authenticity. Starting with the lead actor Micheal Keaton, deliver a performance that is energetic, chaotic, and unapologetically theatrical. His portrayal thrives on unpredictability, using exaggerated expression, vocal shift, and physical comedy to create a character that feels larger than life. What stands out emotionally is not subtlety but confidence. He fully commits to the character's wild nature without holding back. This kind of performances could easily feel overwhelming, but Keaton manages to keep it engaging by maintaining a rhythm that align with the film's tone. There is a sense that he understands exactly how far to push the character without losing the audience. In contrast, Winona Ryder offer a more restrained and introspective performances. Her acting bring emotional balance to the film, grounding its more chaotic element. She convey a quiet intensity, relying on subtitle expression and controlled delivery rather than dramatic gesture. This create a strong and controlled delivery rather than dramatic gesture. This create a strong emotional anchor, allowing viewers to connect with her character on a more personal level. Her presence adds depth, ensuring that the film does not become purely comedic or superficial. The emotional weight she carries feels natural, and it complements the more exaggerated performances around her. Jenna Ortega, as part of the newer generation in the cast, bring a fresh and contemporary energy. Her performances blend curiosity with emotional independence, making her character feel both relatable and distant. Ortega's strength lies in her ability to adapt to the film's stylized environment while still maintaining a sense of realism. She does not overplay her role. Instead, she allow moment to unfold with uncertainty, thoughtful presence. This create a bridge between the older and the newer character, both emotionally and tonally. Looking at the supporting cast, the film benefit from a group of actors who fully embrace the eccentric world they inhabit. Their performances are often bold and expresses contributed to the film's unique atmosphere rather than fading into the background. Supporting character add texture and variety, each bringing a slightly different tone or energy. Some lean into humor, other into surrealism, but all contribute to a cohesive overall experience. The consistency in performances style ensure that no character feel outplaced, even within such an unconventional setting. One of the most important aspect of the acting is the chemistry between the cast member. The interaction feel natural despite the exaggerated world they exist in. The contrast between different acting style, chaotic, restrained, curious, create a dynamic interplay that keep the scene engaging. For example, the tension between unpredictability and control becomes more effective because it is reflected in how the actor respond to one another. These differences do not clash, instead they complement each other, creating a layered emotional experience. There is also noticeable generational chemistry that adapt to the performances. The interaction between older and younger characters feel authentic, capturing the subtitle differences in perspective and attitude. This is not just about dialogue but about timing, reaction, and emotional presence. The actor creates a sense of connection that goes beyond individual performances, making relationship feel believable even within a surreal narrative. Another strength lies in how the cast collectively support the film story. In a movie that blends comedy, fantasy, and light horror, consistency is crucial. The actor maintain a shared understanding of the film style, ensuring that no performances feel disconnected from the overall mood. This unity allows the audience to fully immerse themselves in the experience without being distracted by uneven acting choices. Emotionally, the performances do not aim to overwhelm but to engage, invite the audience to enjoy the character, to observe their quick, and to connect with their underlying humanity. Even the most exaggerated moment carry a sense of intention, preventing the film from feeling chaotic in a negative way. In conclusion, the acting in the film succeeds because it embraces contrast while maintaining cohesion. The lead actor brings distinct emotional tones, the supporting cast enhance the film's atmosphere, and the chemistry between them ties everything together. The result is a set of performances that feel lively, expressive, and emotionally engaging, perfectly suited to the film's unique identity. When discussing realism and character depth in the film, it is important to first recognize that the film does not aim for realism in a literal sense. The world itself is exaggerated, surreal, and intentionally detached from everyday logic. However, within this stylized environment, the film seeks a different kind of realism, one rooted in emotional truth and character behavior rather than physical accuracy. This distinction allows the character to feel meaningful and relatable even when their surroundings are anything but extraordinary. Focusing on character development, the film approaches growth in a subtitle and layer way. Instead of dramatic transformation, characters evolve through shift in perspective. Their journey are shaped by how they respond to instability, uncertainty, and the presence of forces beyond their control. This kind of development feel organic because it mirrors real life experience, where change is often gradual and influenced by internal reflection rather than certain decisive movement. Characters are not simply moving from one fixed state to another, they are adapting, reconsidering, and redefining themselves as the story progresses. Under the direction of the Tim Burton, this development is expressed through both performances and the visual storytelling. Characters are placed in situations that challenge their assumption, and their character reaction feel reveal layer of personality that might not be immediately visible. This creates a sense of depth as viewers are able to observe not just what the character do but why they do it. Their motivations are not always clearly stated, but they can be understood through their behavior and emotional response. In terms of believability, the films operate on an emotional level rather than a literal one. The event may be fantastical, but the character reaction to those events are grounded in recognizable human feeling. Fears, curiosity, frustration, and acceptance all are presenting in way that feel authentic. This is what allow the audience to connect with the character despite the surreal setting. The believability comes from consistency. Character behave in way that align with their established personality, and their response evolve in a way that feel natural within the context of the story. The film also avoid simplifying its character into purely good or bad, or instead it presents them as complex individuals with conflicting traits and motivation. This complexity add to their realism as it reflects the announced nature of real people. Character must act irrationally at time or make decisions that seem contradictory, but these moments contribute to their depth rather than detract from it. They highlight the idea that human behavior is not always logical or predictable. Another important aspect of realism in the film is the way relationships are portrayed. Interaction between characters feel grounded even when the circumstances are unusual. Conservation reactions and the emotional exchange carry a sense of authenticity that help anchor the story. The dynamic between the characters are not static, they shift and evolve as each individual change. These create a more dynamic and believable portrait of relationship where growth and tension coexist. Looking at emotional range, the film offers a wide spectrum of feeling without pushing any single emotion to an extreme. Instead of focusing on intense drama or overwhelming sentiment, it explores a balanced range that includes humor, mild tension, curiosity, and moment of quiet reflection. This approach aligns with the film's overall tone, allowing the emotion to emerge naturally rather than being forced. Characters express themselves in a way that feel consistent with their personalities, whether through subtitle gestures or more expressive reaction. The contrast between different characters also enhances emotional range. Some characters are more restrained, expressing their emotion through quiet observation and measured responses. Others are more exaggerated, using physicality and vocal expression to convey their feeling. This variety creates a richer emotional landscape that is allowed different aspects of human experience to be presenting within the same story. It is also worth noting that the film connection to the original Beetlejuice add another layer to its realism and depth. Returning character carry a sense of history which influence their behavior and emotional state. This continuity maintained their development feel more grounded as it reflects the passage of time and the impact of past experience. Ultimately, realism in Beetlejuice is not about replicating reality but about capturing the essence of human experience with a fantastical framework. Through careful character development, consistent believability, and a nuanced emotional range, the films create characters that feel authentic and layered, that they exist in a world that defies logic, yet their emotions, relationship, and growth remain deeply recognizable, allow viewers to connect with them on a meaningful level. The production budget of the film reflects a measured and controlled financial approach rather than an attempt to compete with the largest blockbuster spectacle. Estimate place the film's cost in the range of approximately $90 million to $100 million, positioning it with the mid to high budget category by contemporary industry standard. This range is significant because it suggests a deliberate effort to balance creative ambition with financial cushion, especially for the sequel that rely heavily on a legacy appeal rather than guaranteed mass market dominance. From an analytical perspective, this cost range indicates a production that is substantial enough to support strong visual design and high quality performances, yet restrained compared to the modern franchise film that frequently exceed $150 million or more. The decision to operate within this range likely reflects a strategy to lower the financial risk while still delivering a product that meets audience expectation for a theatrical release. In terms of resource allocation, a considerable portion of the budget appeared to be directed toward production design and visual style. Under the direction of Tim Burton, the film emphasized stylized movement, detailed set, and practical effects rather than relying entirely on computer generated imagery. This approach required investment in physical craftsmanship, set construction, costume design, and makeup, which can be costly but offer greater control over spending compared to extensive digital post production processes. It also aligns with the film aesthetic identity, ensuring that the visual presentation remain consistent within its tone. Another major component of the budget is the cast and the creative talent. Film of this scale typically involve well-known actors when composition can significantly influence total cost. However, production in the budget range often manage expense through structured payment model, including a mix of upfront salaries and performance-based incentives. This approach allows the film to secure recognizable talent while keeping initial expenditure within limit. Operational costs, including filming logistics, also contribute to the overall budget. Efficient scheduling, strategic location choices, and the use of financial incentives such as tax credits can help reduce these expenses. These behind the scenes decisions are critical in maintaining the budget within the targeted range, ensuring the resources are used effectively without compromising production quality. When compared to the similar film, the budget of the films occupy a middle ground. The original film was produced on a much smaller budget, reflecting the economic condition and filmmaking practice of its time. In contrast, many modern fantasy and supernatural films operate at significantly higher cost level, particularly those that rely heavily on visual effect and large scale action sequence. These comparisons highlight the film's strategic positioning rather than aiming to match the scale of contemporary blockbuster franchise. It focuses on delivering a distinctive experience within a controlled financial framework. This approach is consistent with other legacy sequels, which often prioritize brand recognition and stylistic continuity over sheer scale. Overall, the production budget demonstrates a careful balance between cost management and creative intent. The chosen cost transport the film's visuals and narrative goal while minimizing financial risk by allocating resources toward design, talent, and efficient production practice. The film maintains a level of quality that align with audience expectation without exceeding sustainable limit. This measured approach reflects broader industry trend where studios increasingly seek to optimize return by aligning budget size with realistic performances projection. The domestic box office performance of the film provide a clear example of how a film can be succeed strongly within its home market by aligning with audience expectation and cultural familiarity. In the United States and Canada, the film earned close to $300 million, which represents a significant portion of its overall global revenue. This concentration of funding in the domestic region suggests that the film resonated most deeply with audience who already had some level of awareness or connection to the original concept and its stylistic root. From a regional perspective, North America has historically been more receptive to films shaped by the creative identity of Tim Burton, particularly those that blend dark humor with fantasy elements. This familiarity play a very important role in audience turn on. Viewers in this region are more likely to understand and appreciate the film's tone, which combine eccentric visuals with unconventional storytelling. As a result, the film benefited from a kind of cultural alignment that strengthened its domestic appeal. Audience trend also help explain the film performances. One of the most significant factors is the influence of nostalgia. The original Beetlejuice built a long-standing fan base over the years, and that audience contributed to strong initial interest in the sequel. Many viewers were motivated by a desire to revisit a familiar world, which translated into high attendance during the early stage of release. At the same time, the film managed to attract younger audience who may not have had a direct connection to the original but were drawn in by its distinctive style and contemporary car. This combination of older and younger viewers created a broad demographic base, which is often essential for strong domestic performance. The film tone also play a role in the appeal because it does not rely on intense action or heavy drama. It becomes accessible to a wider range of viewers, including those looking for something more visually creative and less conventional than standard blockbuster offering. This accessibility contributes to the steady audience interest beyond the initial release period. When compared to the similar film, the domestic earning of the film places it in a competitive position within its release year. Many modern fantasy or franchise films achieve large total through international market, but this film demonstrates that a strong domestic foundation can still be a major driver of success. Its performance is particularly notable given its moderate production budget, which is lower than many large-scale productions. This means that the film does not need to reach extremely high global number to be considered financially successful. Another useful comparison is with other legacy sequels, films that revive older properties that often rely heavily on brand recognition, but their success can vary depending on how well they connect with modern audience. In this case, the film appeared to have balanced familiarity with updated elements, effectively allowing it to perform well domestically without feeling outdated. This balance is crucial as it ensured that the film appealed to both returning fans and new viewers. The domestic box office trajectory also reflects a pattern of strong initial interest followed by relatively stable performance. While it is common for films to experience a drop after opening, maintaining consistent attendance over time indicate positive audience reception. This suggests that viewers not only show up early but also continue to engage with the films, likely supported by word of mouth and general audience satisfaction. From an analytical standpoint, the domestic success of the film highlight a broader trend in the industry. There is increasingly value in film that can connect strongly with a specific regional audience, particularly when that audience has an existing cultural or emotional connection to the material. Rather than relying entirely on global appeal, the film leverages its identity to maximize performance where it is more likely to resonate. Overall, the domestic box office earnings of the film demonstrate how film can achieve strong results through targeted appeal, balanced audience demographic, and the effective use of nostalgia. Its performance in the North America region show that even a globalized market, domestic success remain a key indicator of a film impact and financial viability. When examining the international box office performance of the film, a different pattern emerges compared to its strong domestic result. Outside the United States and the Canada, the film generated a more moderate level of earning, contributed a smaller share to the overall global total. This distribution highlights how international market responded differently to the film's tone, style, and culturally familiarity. From a regional perspective, the film performed unevenly across global territory. In markets such as United Kingdom and part of Europe, where audiences have historically shown appreciation for stylized director-driven film, the appreciation was relatively steady. The distinctive visual approach associated with Tim Burton tend to resonate more in these regions where there is a stronger tradition of embracing unconventional storytelling and gothic aesthetic. However, in other major international markets, particularly in part of Asian region where large-scale action film dominate, the performances was more restrained. These markets often favor fast-paced narrative, high-intensity visuals, and universally accessible themes. In comparison, Beetlejuice rely heavily on the specific tone and blend of dark humor that may not translate as easily across cultural boundaries. This difference in audience preferences play a significant role in shaping its international earning. Looking at market reception, the film can be described as having a mixed but stable response globally. While it did not achieve the same level of enthusiasm as it did domestically, it still attracted a consistent audience, where this suggests that there is a global appreciation for its unique style. Even if it does not reach the same level of mass appeal as more conventional blockbuster, the film identity as a sequel to Beetlejuice also influenced its reception. While the original has a strong culture presence in North America, its recognition varies internationally, which can limit the impact of nostalgia as a driving factor. Another important factor is the role of genre pre- preparation. The international audience often interpret genre blend differently. The combination of comedy, fantasy, and the light horror in this film create a tone that is highly specific and sometimes unconventional. In some regions, this uniqueness is seen as a strength, attracting viewers who are looking for something different. In other, it may create uncertainty at audience may be immediately understand what kind of experience the films offer. This can affect both initial turnout and long term performances. The marketing impact also play a crucial role in shaping international box office result. Promotional strategies for global release often need to adopt regional preferences, emphasizing different aspects of the film depending on the audience. For the film, marketing likely highlighted its visual style, a recognizable character, and the return of a well-known cinematic word. However, the effectiveness of these campaigns depend on how familiar audiences are with the brand and how appealing the film's tone appeared in promotional materials. In region where the marketing successfully communicating the film's unique appeal, audience interest were stronger. And now they illustrate the challenge of promoting the film that does not fit in neatly into a single genre or rely on a universally recognized by storytelling pattern. When compared to the similar film, particularly modern fantasy or franchise entries, the international performances of the film fall into a moderate range. Many large-scale productions achieve a significant portion of their revenue from overseas market, often surpassing their domestic earnings. In contrast, this film rely more heavily on its home market, with international earnings serving as a complementary rather than primary source of revenue. This positioning reflects a strategic reality. Films that are strongly tied to a specific creative identity or culture context often face limitation in global scalability. When they can still perform well internationally, the appeal trend to be more selective rather than universal. Overall, the international box office performance of the film demonstrate a balanced but regionally varied reception. Its earnings reflect both the strength and the limitation of its unique style, showing that while it can attract global audience, its strongest connection remain within markets that are most aligned with its tone, theme, and creative approach. The worldwide financial performance of the film can be best understood by looking at how its total global earnings relate to its production and overall cost. The film earned roughly $450 million worldwide, combining both domestic and international market. This figure places it in a strong commercial position, especially considering its moderate production budget. From a global audience perspective, the film's earnings are not evenly distributed. A significant portion comes from North America, where familiarity with the franchise and the creative style of the team Burton is strongest. International market contribute a smaller but still meaningful share. This pattern indicates that while the film has global reach, its core appeal remain concentrated in region where its tone and legacy are more culturally recognized. Despite this imbalance, the overall worldwide growth demonstrate that the film succeed in attracting a sufficiently broad audience across multiple regions. To understand break-even analysis, it is important to consider more than just production budget. While the film production cost is estimated at around $100 million, this is the only part of the total investment. Additional expenses, including marketing, distribution, and promotional campaign, which can significantly increase the overall cost. In many cases, these combined expenses can bring the total investment to approximately $180 to $80 million. Another key factor is that studios do not keep all box office revenue. Portion of ticket sale goes to theater, with the percentage vary by region. Typically, studios receive around 50 to 60% of the domestic box office revenue and a lower percentage from international market. This means that the film must earn considerably more than its production budget to actually break even. Taking this factor into account, the estimated break-even point for the film would likely fall somewhere between $250 and $300 million worldwide. With a total gross of around $450 million, the film surpasses this threshold comfortably. This indicates it not only recovered its cost but also generated a solid profit. Beyond theoretical earning, revenue stream play an important role in the film's overall financial success. This includes digital rental, streaming rights, television licensing, and physical media sales. For a film with a recognizable brand and a loyal fan base, these additional streams can provide substantial long-term income. They also reduce reliance on box office performance alone, making the financial model more stable. The role of distribution cost is also significant in this analysis. Distributing a film globally involves expenses related to localization, marketing adjustment for different regions, and logistical coordination. These costs are often included in the broader marketing budget, but they directly impact how effectively the film reach international audience. Efficient distribution strategy can help maximize return, while insufficiencies can limit a film earning potential in certain market. When viewed in comparison to a larger blockbuster film, which often required worldwide grosses of $600 million or more to break even, the film benefits from its more controlled budget. This lower financial threshold allows it to achieve profitability without needing to dominate every global market. It represents a more sustainable model where moderate cost and targeted appeal can still lead to strong financial outcome. Overall, the worldwide gross and break-even promises of the film reflect a well-balanced financial strategy. The film successfully leveraged its global audience, combined multiple revenue streams, and managed distribution costs effectively. By exceeding its estimated break-even point by a significant margin, it demonstrated how a mid-budget production with a clear identity can achieve both commercial success and long-term profitability in the modern film industry. A clear view of profitability for the films comes from comparing total revenue against all major cost layers, then factoring in downstream income streams that extend beyond theatrical release. Starting with revenue versus cost, the film worldwide box office of roughly $450 million sits well above its estimated $90 to $100 million production budget. However, its profitability can't be judged on production cost alone. When marketing, distribution, and promotional expenses are including, the total outlay likely rises to somewhere in the $180 to $220 million range. In addition, studios do not retain the full box office gross. A common industry split means roughly half of domestic ticket sales and a smaller share of international sales return to the studio. Even with these deductions, the film theatrical revenue still appears strong enough to cover its total cost. Given its domestic heavy performance, where studios return are generally higher, the revenue structure work in its favor. This suggests that the film likely crossed its break-even point comfortably and move into profitability during its theatrical run. The role of ancillary income further strengthened this position. After leaving cinema, the film generated additional revenue through digital rentals, streaming licenses, television rights, and physical media sales. A little connected to a recognizable property like the original Beetlejuice tend to perform well in these secondary market because of sustained audience interest and repeat viewing potential. These income streams are often low risk and can continue generating return over a long period, effectively boosting total lifetime revenue. Streaming and licensing deals are particularly important in the modern industry. Platforms compete for recognizable titles that already have built-in audience awareness, and a film shaped by the creative identity of Tim Burton carries a certain brand value. This increases its attractiveness for distribution agreements, adding another layer of financial return beyond theatrical performances. Merchandising and brand related revenue may also contribute, although to a lesser extent compared to the major franchise film. Still, the distinctive visual style and iconic character element can support niche merchandising opportunities, further adding to the overall income. When considering to the ROI, the film performed well relative to its scale. ROI is influenced not just by total profit but by how effectively that profit is generated. Because the production budget was kept at a moderate level, the film did not require extreme global earning to achieve profitability. This controlled spending significantly improved its ROI compared to the higher budget film that must earn much more to break even. In comparison, many large-scale productions with budget exceeding $150 million to $200 million face greater financial pressure. Even if they achieve higher box office total, their margin can be narrowed due to higher cost Beetlejuice, by contrast, benefited from a more balanced cost to revenue ratio, allowing it to generate profit without needing to dominate every international market. Another factor supporting its profitability in its risk managed strategy. By relying on an established property and recognizable creative style, the film reduces uncertainty in audience demand. This makes its financial performance more predictable and stable, which is a key consideration in evaluating profitability from an industry perspective. Overall, the film can be considered financially successful and profitable. Its revenue exceeded its combined costs, its ancillary income stream, and had long term value, and its moderate budget enhanced its return on investment. Rather than aiming for maximum scale, it demonstrates how a carefully managed production can achieve strong profitability through strategy, expanding targeted audience appeal, and sustained revenue generation across multiple platforms. The audience response to the film can be best understood by looking at how different group of viewers reacted to its tone, style, and the overall experience. Rather than producing a single unified reaction, the film generated a range of responses shaped by demographic expectation and familiarity with the creative approach associated with the Tim Burton. When a demographic perspective, the film attracted a notably broad audience. Older viewers, particularly those who were already familiar with the original Beetlejuice, responded with a sense of nostalgia and curiosity. From this group, the experience was often tied to revisited a familiar cinematic style and atmosphere. Their reaction tended to focus on whether the film preserved the tone they remember while still offering something new. Many appreciated the return to a distinctive visual identity, though some expressed mixed feeling depend on how closely it aligned with their expectation. Younger viewers, on the other hand, approached the film with fewer preconceptions. Their reactions were more influenced by the film's visual appeal, pacing, and the overall entertaining value. The group generally responded positively to the film uniqueness, especially in comparison to a more conventional release. The stylized presentation and conventional humor stand out as refreshing, particularly for audience accustomed to formula-driven storytelling. However, some viewers within this demographic found the tone unusual or harder to categorize, which occasionally led to a more mixed reactions. In terms of viewers' feedback, one of the most consistent point of discussion was the film's distinctive style. Audience widely recognized that the film does not follow standard narrative or tonal pattern. For many, this was a major strength. They appreciate the creativity, the bold visual choice, and the willingness to embrace something different. This kind of feedback often highlight the film as a break from more predictable mainstream offering. At the same time, this same uniqueness also become a point of division. Some viewers felt that the film's tone was too unconventional or inconsistent with what they expected from a modern lead. The blend of humor and the era element did not resonate equally with everyone. As a result, reaction were often shaped by personal preferences. Those who enjoy offbeat storytelling tended to respond more positively, while those who prefer more structured or traditional narrative were less enthusiastic. Another aspect of the viewers' feedback involving the film's pacing and atmosphere. Many audiences appreciate the way the film allows its world to unfold gradually, creating a more immersive experience. This slower, more deliberate rhythm was seen as a strength by viewers who value atmosphere and visual storytelling. However, others felt that this approach required more patience, leading to varied opinion about engagement level. Looking at audience engagement, the film generated a significant amount of discussion across social platform and general conservation space. Much of this engagement centered on its visual identity, tone, and connection to earlier cinematic style. The film encouraged viewers to share their interpretation and reaction, particularly because its style invited personal interpretation rather than delivering a straightforward experience. Engagement was also driven by curiosity because the film does not fit neatly into a single genre. Audience were often interested in discussing how it should be categorized and what kind of experience it offered. This kind of conservation extends the film's presence beyond its runtime, contributing to its overall cultural visibility. Another important factor in audience engagement is repeat viewing potential. Film with stronger visual style and layer presentation often encourage multiple viewing, as audience may notice new detail or develop a deeper appreciation over time. This contribution to sustain interest even among viewers who may not have fully connected with the film on their first watch. Overall audience reaction to the film can be described as broadly positive but very shaped largely by the individual taste and expectation. The film succeeds in engaging viewers who appreciate creativity, stylization, and conventional storytelling while generating more mixed response from those who prefer traditional structure and tone. This range of reaction ultimately reflects the film's identity. It's not designed to appeal uniformly to all audience, but rather to create a distinctive experience that resonates strongly with a certain group. Through its demographic reach, diverse viewers' feedback, and active engagement, the film demonstrates how a unique creative approach can both attract and challenge audience in equal measure. The box office performance of the film plays a significant role in shaping how the film is perceived both by general audience and with the film's industry. Financial success often influences not only how a movie is judged in the present but also how it is remembered over time. In this case, the film's strong commercial performance add a layer of credibility that affect critical interpretation, studio positioning, and its standing within its genre. From the standpoint of critical reception, box office success tend to reinforce visibility and relevance. When a film performs well financially, it remains part of the cultural conservation for a longer period. This extended attention often lead to more in-depth analysis and broader discussion. Critics may revisit their initial impression or engage more seriously with the film's themes and stylistic choices. While box office success does not automatically translate into positivity, it gets often the perception of risk. A film that connects with a large audience is often seen as having achieved something meaningful, even if its artistic merits are debated. In the case of the Beetlejuice, commercial strength suggests that its unconventional tone and stylized approach resonated with viewers. This can influence critics to view the film not as an isolated experiment but as a successful example of a particular creative direction. It shifts the conversation from does this work to why this work for so many people. This distinction is important because it reframes the film as culturally relevant for rather than niche. The film performances also impact the studio's reputation behind it. For a production associated with Burton, this success reinforce confidence in a distinctive director-driven style. Studios often face a tension between creative risk and financial security, and the film like this demonstrate that originality can scale be commercially viable. This can encourage future projects that lean towards stylistic individuality rather than strict formula. From a broader industry perspective, the film box office itself contribute to how studios elevate mid-budget production. In an era where many films either fall into a low-budget independent category or extremely high-budget blockbuster, successfully mid-range film provide an alternative. Moderate suggests that controlled budget combined with strong brand identity can produce reliable control. This can influence green lighting decisions, encouraging studios to invest in similar projects that balance creativity with financial discipline. When considering genre comparison, the films occupy a unique space that affects how its success is interpreted. It does not align fully with traditional horror, comedy, or fantasy, but instead blend element of all three. In comparison to large scale fantasy or action film, its box office performance is particularly notable because it achieved strong results without relying on conventional blockbuster formula. This position it as an example of how hybrid genres can succeed when they maintain a clear and consistent identity. At the same time, its success may raise expectation for similar film audience, and studios may begin to look for other projects that combine dark humor with stylized visual, expecting comparable results. However, this can be a double-edged sword. What work for one film, especially one with an established legacy like Beetlejuice, may not easily translate to entirely new property. The perception created by Its box office success may therefore influence the genre in ways that are not always sustainable. Another important aspect is how financial performance affect audience perception over time. Films that perform well at the box office are often assumed to have broad appeal, which can shape how new viewers approach them. A successful film is more likely to be seen as a worth watching, creating a positive feedback loop where financial success lead to increased interest, which in turn sustain its popularity. Finally, the box office impact contribute to the film's long-term positioning within its category. It becomes a part of a reference point when discussing similar film in the future. Its performance may be used to measure the success of other stylized or legacy-driven project, influencing how both audience and industry professionals elevate new release. Overall, the box office performance of the film significantly enhances its perception, strengthen its standing in critical discussion, support the reputation of its creative team, and influence how the similar films are viewed and developed. By achieving commercial success within a unique genre blend, it demonstrates that distinctive storytelling can coexist with strong audience appeal, shaping both immediate reaction and long-term industry perspective. In the end, Beetlejuice stand as a visually distinctive and stylistically confident sequel that lean heavily into its identity rather than trying to demonstrate itself beyond recognition. From a cinematic quality standpoint, the film succeeds in maintaining a cohesive tone, blending dark humor with fantasy in a way that feels film never lost its unique voice, which remains its biggest strength. In terms of production value, the film benefit from a detailed set design, strong visual composition, and clear emphasis on practical effect. This gives a what a tangible, handcrafted feel that sets it apart from more generic CGI heavy production. However, at times the stylization can feel overly indulgent, as if the film prioritizes aesthetic over narrative clarity. The performances are a major highlight. Micheal Keaton bring energy and unpredictability, fully embracing the eccentric tone, while Ryder provide emotion grounding. Jenna Ortega add a fresh presence that help bridge generational appeal. Their combined chemistry create a dynamic balance between chaos and control. The film themes identity, acceptance, and the coexistence of order and disorder are thoughtfully embedded, though not always deeply explored. At times, the narrative feels secondary to the film style, which may limit its emotional impact for some viewers. Overall, its strength lies in originality, atmosphere, and performance, while its weakness stems from uneven pacing and reliance on style over substance. It is not universally accessible, but for those who appreciate unconventional storytelling, it offers a memorable and creatively rich experience.